All right. Well, we're going to get started with our May 2023 coffee break, 5 things you should know. This is a very short overview of a topic. And so this month, we are going to be sharing on target date funds. Now, most people who are involved with a 401k or have been involved with a 401k are pretty familiar with target date funds. And so we just want to kind of go through the ins and outs of everything and just kind of let you know what's going on, how target date funds work. So, all right. So just a quick overview of what Coffee Break is. This is a presentation that's made for people who are involved with 401ks, typically employees of companies. They've got 401ks. They don't necessarily have somebody to talk to, and we help you with that. And we'll go through what our background is and why we're qualified to chat with you guys about that, in a second. But this is really just to kind of help address some financial future questions, help you get to your goals a little faster. These are supposed to be short and sweet. So TED Talks say they should be under 22 minutes to keep everybody engaged. And so we try to do them in 15 or less. We're usually on the less side. Chris is usually with me. He's not available this month. But we are short and sweet and to the point, which is good in this world, right? And we're just going to cover highlights on the topic of target date funds this time around. And if you have any questions or anything like that, please let us know. You can reach out to us. There will be a link at the end of the presentation so you can set up a no obligation complimentary call with us. All right, so who are we? So I'm going to start with Chris because he's my business partner and he wasn't able to make it today. He had a conflict, but I won't be here in June. So, we trade off. That's totally fine. So Chris has been in the industry for 22 years. He tends to help employers implement retirement plans such as 401ks and other things like cash balance plans and pension plans and all that stuff, as well as benefits. So he's used to talking to many of you out there about your 401k as the advisor on the 401k. And we try to add little tidbits and fun things that maybe you don't know about us. And one thing is he is a skier and loves winter sports, which I've known him for 12 years and I didn't know that. So there you go. My name's Lisa Sakai. I've been in the industry for 12 years and I tend to work a lot with female professionals, executives who work at companies with 401ks and benefits that they have questions on. And so I deal with these subjects all the time. We're going through people's 401ks and talking about how they're allocated and stuff a lot. So that's how I have some knowledge in this area. And for my fun fact, I used to be in the talent agency world. I used to help get actors gigs and work their way up the ladder. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I like doing this better. All right, so let's start with number one, which is what is a target date fund? Now, target date funds most people are pretty familiar with them if they've had a 401k, but just to kind of go through what they are, just in case you've had questions on it. It's an assortment of stocks and bonds or fixed income. And what it is that they take a date, say 2045. And let's say you're 40 right now, and you want this target date fund to be relevant to you. So essentially what that is that 2045 is actually supposed to be the year closest to when you turn 65. So if you're 40 right now, it would be you would be at 2048. So your target date fund would probably be 2045 that you would choose. So it's closest to your age of 65. And what happens in these funds is that they're self-managed, meaning that the fund company actually will tailor the risk down as you get older, which is a common thing that many people do. As you get closer to retirement, you want to be a little bit more conservative with your allocation and with your risk most of the time. And this does it for you, so you don't have to think about it. Oftentimes, a target date fund is a one and done. So you have your target date fund, it's taking care of your full allocation, and you don't have to add anything or manage anything. And we'll go through the pros and cons of that in a second, but that's essentially what a target date fund is. Now, number two is, are they all the same? So let's say you worked at one company and they had Vanguard target date funds, and now you work at a different company and they have Fidelity target date funds. Are they the same? No, they're not. So here's an example. Again, we use that target date fund 2045 here. And essentially, these are just made up companies. I didn't do a whole analysis on different fund companies. So we just named them X target date fund and Y target date fund. So let's say an X target date fund, they actually have 60% of US stocks in the target date fund in the stock portion of it, while Y might only have 50% that are US stocks in the stock portion of the portfolio. And some might have small companies in there, which are called small cap. Some might have emerging markets, which are international and kind of developing but not completely developed international markets. Some might not. So every target date fund is very different, and so you want to take a look at the one that you're in. Oftentimes, if you're in your portal, you can just click on it and it'll give you a full download of how it's built, so that you don't just assume it's exactly the same as the fund company that you were at before. So how expensive are they? So now we're talking about the expenses of the target date fund themselves. There are expenses in the 401k that are different than this. We can do a presentation on that if you'd like at some point, but right now we're just talking about the fund. Okay. So for funds, there's a thing called the expense ratio. And the expense ratio is basically paying for administration, management of the fund, advertising for the fund company, and various other expenses. And essentially, that expense ratio is on there as the fee. As you know, their company, they need to make money too, so that's your fee. Now, they can be different. They can be very different. So if you choose X company, maybe their expense ratio is 0.25, and Y company, their expense ratio is 1.15. Those are different, very different percentages. And you can have different expense ratios within the same fund company. So if we were looking at Vanguard, maybe the 2045 expense ratio, and I'm making this up, I have no idea what they are, but their target date fund, maybe that's 0.3, but a different year is 0.9. Not that they're very expensive, Vanguard's known for being low in expense ratios in general, but you want to make sure you understand what you're paying for and that they're not all made the same, especially when it comes to their fees. The reason that one target date fund might be more expensive than another in the same fund family, like Vanguard, let's say, is because of possibly more active management. Maybe it's a little bit more aggressive, so they're doing more active management of the funds than maybe the more conservative ones can be, or some other justification that they have for those. All right, so let's go through the good and the bad. So the last 2 points are what's good about them and what's bad about them. So why would you use a target date fund? You would use a target date fund if you didn't want to do any kind of involvement or personalization of your investments in your 401k. You want to choose your one fund and be done with it, because internally the fund will become more conservative for you over time, and you don't have to watch that. That's typically why people choose target date funds. They want set it and forget it. They don't want to be involved with it at all. They just want the fund company that's been chosen in their 401k to do it. And so that's why people will choose a target date fund. And that's not a bad reason. It's a great reason. It's nice to have that as an option if you just want zero involvement with it. All right. So that's why most people would do it. And that's what's good about it, is you have that option to do that. What can be bad about it is exactly the same thing, which is there's no personalization in there. You can't say, oh, this target date fund doesn't have something, so I'm going to add to it. You can technically layer on different funds. So you can have a target date fund and then add an emerging market fund as well to diversify it. Oftentimes you'd probably want to sit down with a professional and figure out how that works, just because you don't want to be paying exorbitant amount of fees trying to diversify a target date fund if you could maybe get the same result, just building funds out by yourself. And the other thing that we see a lot is people want it to be more diversified. They want to bring their risk down even more or elevate their risk maybe. And so they layer on two different target date funds. So they have the 2045 and the 2040. We often will tell people not to do that. There's exceptions, of course, it depends on your situation, but a lot of times when you layer on target date funds, you're not necessarily getting the diversification and allocation that you're really looking for. And you're paying more in fees, honestly, to not really be getting very much. So we always say, if you stick with target date funds, choose one most of the time. Like I said, there's some things that if you can see a big gap, in the target date fund of emerging markets or small cap funds or something like that, you can always layer those on extra, but you just want to make sure you have those ratios right, because like, let's say small companies or small caps can be really volatile, and you don't want to put too much in there if you're kind of risk adverse, right? So you just want to kind of get an idea of how to do that and really look at the portfolio as a whole. And layering two target date funds typically isn't really doing what you're intending it to do. So in conclusion, obviously target date funds have their pros and cons. So you'll hear some people just absolutely hate target date funds and some just love them. It just really depends on you, the 401k, the options that are offered to you, and lots of other things that are kind of on a personal side. So we're happy to discuss your personal situation. We'll have a link in a second for you to sign up for that no obligation call. If you'd like. And also, Chris and I have the option of being able to actually help you with managing your 401k too. So if that's of interest, you can always give us a call, and we're happy to chat with you about the details on how that works. Now we also have past videos. So if you're wanting to see, we're on the third, this is the third coffee break. So if you want to see more of these or other videos that I've done on there, you can actually go to our YouTube channel and see them all in their glory. So if you ever miss this one, you can just come back and it'll be on YouTube in a couple of weeks after we do this. And with that, here's our information. You can email us. You can go to our website. We have some great resources on there as well for some financial planning stuff, as well as blogs and other things on there. I have a very active LinkedIn. So if you're just wanting to get some more tidbits and information, bite-sized pieces, that's a good place to find me. And you can schedule a call. So you use your QR code reader, and you're on the photo part or camera part of your phone. It will pop up a website. You can click on there and schedule a call to talk to both of us, either one of us, whatever you want. So that's it for May. Next month we'll be at halfway point of the year. I can't believe it. But for May 2023, that one is done. Let us know if we can help in any way. And as we always say, One Vision Retirement, your retirement in 2020 vision.